The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the vast savanna. The dry grasses swayed gently in the wind, hiding the movements of countless creatures. It was late afternoon, and the air was thick with the familiar calls of birds and rustling leaves. For most animals, this was a time of rest, a pause before the cool evening hunt. But for one lion, this day would be far from ordinary. Hidden beneath a cluster of thorny acacia trees lay a young girl. She was no older than 8, her clothes torn and stained with dust. Her face was streaked with tires, her small frame trembling with exhaustion. She clutched her knees tightly to her chest, the weight of abandonment pressing down on her. Left alone in the middle of nowhere, she had no idea how she had ended up here, or how she would survive. The lion, a towering figure with a mane that rippled like fire, moved silently through the grasses. He was known as the guardian of this part of the savanna, respected and feared by all who crossed his path. His powerful build and sharp instincts made him the leader of his pride. But today, he was alone, his amber eyes scanning the horizon as he searched for something, though even he did not know what. A faint sound reached his ears, carried by the wind. It was unlike any noise he had heard before, a soft, pitiful cry that tugged at something deep within him. The lion paused, his ears swiveling toward the source. He followed the sound cautiously, his massive paws padding silently over the earth. As he approached the acacia trees, the cries grew louder, more desperate. When he finally saw her, his steps faltered. The sight of the small girl lying helplessly among the roots stirred something unfamiliar in him. He could see her vulnerability, the fear in her wide eyes as she looked up and saw him. The girl froze, her breath hitching in her throat. She had heard stories of lions, fierce predators that ruled the wild with unmatched strength. But this one didn't pounce or growl. Instead, he stood still, his golden eyes fixed on her. For a moment, neither moved, the tension between them as fragile as the thin blades of grass swaying around them. The lion took a cautious step forward, his massive frame towering over the girl. She flinched, pressing herself tighter against the tree's trunk. But there was no aggression in his movements. He lowered his head slightly, his eyes softening as if to say, "I won't hurt you." The girl's tears slowed, her fear giving way to a glimmer of curiosity. She reached out a trembling hand, stopping just short of touching his mane. The lion stayed perfectly still, his calm demeanor giving her a sense of safety she hadn't felt since waking up alone in the savanna. In the distance, the sounds of the savanna continued. The calls of birds, the rustle of grass. But here, beneath the acacia trees, a strange connection was forming. The girl, who had thought herself completely abandoned, and the lion, a creature who owed her nothing, found themselves bound by an unspoken understanding. As the sun dipped closer to the horizon, the lion took a step back, his gaze shifting toward the open savanna. The girl watched him, unsure of what he would do next. But when he turned and began to walk away, he stopped after a few steps and looked back, as if beckoning her to follow. Gathering what little courage she had, the girl rose shakily to her feet. Her legs felt weak, but the lion's presence gave her strength. With one hesitant step after another, she began to follow him. Together, they moved through the grasses, the girl trailing behind the lion's protective form. She didn't know where he was leading her, but for the first time since waking up in this vast wilderness, she felt like she wasn't alone. The savanna was vast and unforgiving, stretching endlessly in every direction. Shadows grew longer as the sun dipped lower, casting an amber glow over the landscape. The girl followed the lion cautiously, her small feet stumbling over rocks and dry grasses. She didn't know where he was leading her, but she felt safer with him than she ever had on her own. The lion moved with purpose, his massive form cutting through the tall grasses like a ship through water. As they journeyed, the girl began to notice the lion's watchful demeanor. His ears twitched at the slightest sound, and his amber eyes scanned the horizon constantly. It was as if he were shielding her from the dangers that lurked unseen in the vast wilderness. She stayed close behind, her trust in him growing with each careful step he took. The air grew cooler as night approached, and the sounds of the savannah shifted. Nocturnal predators stirred, their low growls and calls breaking the quiet. The girl shivered, clutching her arms tightly around herself. The lion paused, glancing back at her with an almost human-like concern. He circled around her briefly, his presence a silent reassurance. Then he continued forward, his pace steady but deliberate. They reached a small clearing where a shallow stream trickled gently over smooth stones. The lion stopped and lowered his massive head to drink, his movements slow and unthreatening. The girl hesitated but eventually knelt beside him, cupping her hands to gather water. The cool liquid soothed her parched throat, giving her a burst of energy she hadn't felt in hours. As she drank, the lion sat nearby, his golden mane catching the last rays of sunlight. He watched her quietly, his gaze unwavering. The girl felt a strange sense of gratitude. This creature, who could have easily harmed her, had instead chosen to guide and protect her. She whispered softly, "Thank you," unsure if he could understand her words, but needing to say them anyway. The moment of calm was short-lived. A distant howl echoed through the air, sending a shiver down the girl's spine. The lion's ears perked, and he rose to his feet, his muscles tense and ready. The girl clutched the edge of her tattered dress, fear creeping back into her chest. She looked to the lion, who stood tall and unyielding, his body a wall of strength between her and whatever threat lay beyond. The howls grew louder, closer. A pack of hyenas emerged from the shadows, their yellow eyes glinting with hunger. They moved as a unit, circling the clearing and cutting off any escape. The girl's breath quickened, and she stumbled back, but the lion stepped forward, his deep growl reverberating through the air. His mane bristled, and his teeth bared in a fierce snarl. The hyenas hesitated, their cackling laughter faltering as they sized up their opponent. They outnumbered him, but they knew better than to underestimate a lion in his prime. The leader of the pack crept closer, testing the lion's resolve. With a powerful roar that seemed to shake the very ground beneath them, the lion lunged, swiping a massive paw at the nearest hyena. The pack scattered momentarily, their confidence shaken. The girl crouched behind a large rock, her heart pounding in her chest. She peeked out, watching in awe as the lion defended her with unwavering bravery. He moved with precision and strength, keeping the hyenas at bay with each powerful strike. It was clear he wasn't just fighting for himself, he was protecting her. After what felt like an eternity, the hyenas retreated, their laughter fading into the distance. The lion stood tall, his chest heaving as he watched them disappear into the darkness. He turned back to the girl, his fierce expression softening as he approached her. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. The lion let out a low, rumbling sound, not a growl, but something softer, almost reassuring. He nudged her gently with his nose as if to say, "You're safe now." The girl reached out with a trembling hand, her fingers brushing against his mane. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt truly protected. As the night deepened, the lion led her to a small cave nestled against a rocky outcrop. The girl hesitated at the entrance, but the lion entered first, his massive form blocking any danger from following. Inside, the air was cool but sheltered from the wind. The girl curled up against the smooth stone wall, exhaustion overtaking her. The lion lay down near the entrance, his body a barrier against the outside world. His amber eyes glowed faintly in the darkness as he kept watch. The girl drifted off to sleep, her breathing steady and peaceful for the first time in days. Outside, the savannah stretched on, vast and wild, but for now she was safe under the lion's watchful care. As dawn broke over the savannah, soft golden light spilled into the small cave. The girl stirred, blinking sleepily as she adjusted to the faint warmth of the new day. She looked around, momentarily disoriented, until her eyes landed on the lion resting near the entrance. His massive form was still, but his amber eyes were open, scanning the horizon with an air of quiet vigilance. The girl sat up slowly, her joints stiff from the cold stone floor. She rubbed her arms, still chilled despite the morning sun's first rays. The lion turned his head slightly, his gaze meeting hers. For a moment, neither moved. Then, with a soft rumble, he rose to his feet, shaking his mane as though preparing for the day ahead. The lion stepped outside, his movements calm but deliberate. The girl followed hesitantly, unsure of what to expect. The savannah stretched endlessly before them, its golden grasses rippling in the breeze. It was both beautiful and intimidating, a stark reminder of the wilderness they were navigating together. The girl glanced at the lion, who stood tall and steady beside her. Despite his formidable presence, there was a gentleness in his demeanor that reassured her. She reached out tentatively, her small hand brushing against his fur. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft but earnest. The lion didn't react outwardly, but his steady presence was enough to communicate that he understood. Their journey resumed, the lion leading the way with purposeful strides. The girl followed close behind, her trust in him growing with each step. As they moved through the grasses, she noticed how he seemed to sense everything around them: the rustle of distant animals, the shifting wind, the faint cries of birds overhead. He was attuned to the savannah in a way that fascinated her. At midday, the lion led her to a shaded spot beneath a cluster of tall trees. The air was cooler here, and a small watering hole glistened nearby. The girl knelt by the water, cupping her hands to drink while the lion stood guard. She watched him curiously, marveling at his strength and grace. "You're not like the stories," she said aloud, though she didn't expect a reply. "You're kind." As she rested, the girl began to gather small pieces of grass and twigs, her hands moving instinctively. She wove them together, creating a simple but sturdy braid. The activity calmed her, grounding her in the present moment. When the lion lay down nearby, she reached out cautiously, placing the braid on his paw. "For you," she said with a small smile. He glanced at it briefly before returning his gaze to the horizon, his quiet acceptance warming her heart. The peace of the afternoon was soon interrupted by a distant roar. The lion's ears perked and his body tensed. The girl froze, her eyes wide with fear. She had heard the roar too, its deep and menacing tone echoing across the savannah. The lion rose swiftly, his movements deliberate and controlled. He stepped in front of her, his body shielding her from whatever threat lay ahead. Through the tall grasses, another lion appeared. Its golden mane shimmered in the sunlight, but its eyes were cold and calculating. This lion wasn't a protector, it was a challenger. The girl's heart raced as she realized the danger they were in. Her guardian let out a powerful roar, a sound that seemed to shake the very ground beneath them. The two lions circled each other, their postures tense and aggressive. The girl crouched low, her hands trembling as she watched the standoff unfold. She wanted to help, but she knew she was powerless in the face of such raw power. All she could do was trust in her guardian's strength and courage. The confrontation was brief but fierce. Her lion's dominance was evident in every calculated movement, his roars echoing across the savannah. The challenger eventually backed down, retreating into the grasses with a final growl. The girl let out a shaky breath, relief washing over her. Her protector turned to her, his amber eyes meeting hers with a calm reassurance. As the sun began to set, they continued their journey. The girl couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude and awe for the lion who had chosen to protect her. She reached out again, her fingers brushing against his mane. "You're my hero," she said softly, her voice filled with sincerity. The lion didn't respond, but the way he walked beside her, steady and unwavering, was answer enough. As twilight descended over the savannah, the horizon glowed with deep hues of orange and purple. The lion led the way, his silhouette sharp against the fading light, while the girl trailed closely behind. Her small feet ached, and exhaustion clung to her like a heavy weight, but she refused to stop. Something about the lion's steady presence gave her strength, pushing her to keep moving. They reached a small grove of trees, where the lion paused and sniffed the air. The girl watched as he circled the area, his body tense and alert. Finally satisfied that the grove was safe, he lay down near the roots of an old baobab tree, his golden eyes scanning the darkness. The girl sank to the ground beside him, her legs trembling from the long walk. She leaned against the tree's rough bark, her eyes half closed as she whispered, "Where are we going?" Of course, the lion didn't answer, but she felt a strange sense of understanding in the way he looked at her. It wasn't just a journey to survive, it was something more. He was leading her toward hope, though she couldn't yet see it. As the night deepened, the savannah came alive with nocturnal sounds. The distant calls of owls and the rustle of unseen animals in the grass made the girl uneasy, but the lion's steady breathing kept her grounded. She reached out to touch his mane, the soft fur a comforting reminder of his protection. "Thank you," she whispered again, her voice barely audible over the sounds of the wild. The lion let out a low rumble, not a growl, but a sound that seemed almost reassuring. His presence was enough to ease her fears, allowing her to drift into a fitful sleep. The night passed slowly, the stars above casting a faint light over the quiet grove. The lion kept watch, his eyes never straying far from the girl as the hours crept by. The next morning, the savannah was cloaked in mist, the grasses shimmering with dew as the first rays of sunlight broke through the haze. The lion nudged the girl gently with his nose, waking her with a soft huff. She stirred, blinking groggily as she adjusted to the pale morning light. Her body ached from the previous day's journey, but the sight of the lion standing tall and ready gave her the motivation to rise. They continued their trek, the lion navigating the terrain with ease. He seemed to know every dip and rise, every hidden water source. At midday, he led her to a shallow pond where they rested. The girl drank deeply, the cool water refreshing her parched throat. She noticed how the lion drank sparingly, his eyes scanning the surroundings even as he quenched his thirst. He was always alert, always protecting her. As they moved on, the girl began to notice signs of life. A flock of birds taking flight, distant herds grazing in the distance. It was as if the savannah was waking up around her, its harshness softening with each step they took. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel something she hadn't in a long time: hope. The lion's behavior began to shift subtly as well. He slowed his pace, his gaze often turning toward the horizon. The girl wondered if they were nearing their destination, though she still had no idea where that might be. "Are we close?" she asked, her voice small but filled with curiosity. The lion didn't respond, of course, but his movements seemed to carry a sense of purpose. He guided her through a narrow ravine, the rocky walls towering above them. The air was cooler here, the sounds of the savannah muffled by the high cliffs. As they emerged on the other side, the girl's breath caught in her throat. Before them lay a sprawling valley, lush and vibrant with life. Tall grasses swayed gently in the breeze, and a winding river glittered like silver in the sunlight. The girl's eyes widened as she took it all in. It was a stark contrast to the dry, desolate landscapes she had grown accustomed to. The lion paused, his massive frame silhouetted against the breathtaking scenery. He turned to her, his golden eyes meeting hers as if to say, "This is what I wanted you to see." Tears welled in the girl's eyes as she knelt down, her hands clutching the grass beneath her. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. The lion stood silently beside her, his presence a steady reassurance. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting the valley in soft golden light, the girl realized something profound. This wasn't just a place of safety, it was a new beginning. The lion had guided her not only through the dangers of the savannah, but also through her own fear and doubt. He had given her a chance to start again, to find strength in herself and the world around her. She reached out and placed a hand on his mane, her voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she said once more, her words carrying all the emotion she couldn't express. The lion let out a low, rumbling sound, his amber eyes soft and calm. As they stood together in the valley, the girl felt a deep sense of peace. She didn't know what the future held, but with the lion by her side, she believed she could face whatever came next. The valley welcomed them with open arms, its beauty and serenity a stark contrast to the harsh savannah they had left behind. The lion led the girl to a shaded spot near the riverbank, where the water flowed gently over smooth stones. The girl knelt down, cupping her hands to drink while the lion stood nearby, his watchful gaze fixed on the horizon. For the first time in days, the girl allowed herself to relax. The lush greenery and abundance of life around her filled her with a sense of calm she hadn't felt in what seemed like forever. She looked at the lion, his massive frame silhouetted against the golden light of the setting sun. "You've taken care of me," she said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you." The lion let out a low rumble, his amber eyes meeting hers. Though he couldn't speak, the girl felt as if he understood her words. He had guided her through the dangers of the savannah, shielded her from predators, and brought her to this place of safety. His actions spoke louder than words ever could. As night fell, the girl gathered leaves and soft grasses to create a makeshift bed near the river. The lion lay down close by, his body a silent barrier between her and the unknown. The stars above sparkled like tiny beacons, their light reflecting in the calm waters of the river. The girl closed her eyes, her breathing steady and peaceful. For the first time in a long time, she felt safe. The next morning, the valley came alive with the sounds of birds and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. The girl awoke to find the lion standing a short distance away, his gaze fixed on a herd of gazelles grazing near the river. He turned to her briefly, his eyes soft but purposeful. She understood what he was saying without words. This valley was his domain, but it could also be her home. She rose to her feet, her small frame steady despite the trials she had endured. The girl felt a renewed sense of strength, a connection to the world around her that she hadn't felt before. The lion approached her, his movements slow and deliberate. He nuzzled her gently with his nose, a gesture of reassurance and farewell. It was then that the girl realized what he intended. He had brought her here to protect her, to give her a chance at a new life. But his place was in the wild, leading his pride and ruling the savannah. Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, understanding that their journey together had come to an end. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "For everything." She reached out one last time, her fingers brushing against his mane. The lion let out a low, rumbling sound before turning and walking toward the horizon. The girl watched as his powerful form disappeared into the golden grasses, her heart heavy yet filled with gratitude. As the days turned into weeks, the girl made the valley her home. She learned to find food, build shelter, and navigate the rhythms of the wild. The lessons she had learned from the lion guided her, his strength, his vigilance, his kindness. The valley, once an unfamiliar place, became her sanctuary. She often thought of him, wondering where he was and if he still roamed the savannah as fearlessly as before. But whenever she felt lonely or afraid, she would remember his amber eyes and the unspoken bond they had shared. It gave her courage, a reminder that she was never truly alone. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the girl stood by the river, watching the water glisten in the fading light. She smiled softly, her heart full of gratitude for the lion who had changed her life. "You'll always be with me," she whispered to the wind, her voice carrying across the valley. And though the lion was far away, his presence remained a part of her, as constant and unyielding as the stars above. Their journey together had been brief but unforgettable, a testament to the extraordinary bond between two souls who had found each other in the vastness of the wild. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Together, let's celebrate the incredible connections between humans and animals and remind the world of the power of kindness.